Some Kind of Happiness by Claire Legrand. Chapter 11. On Sunday morning, I go with Grandma and Aunt Bridget to Barclay Park. There is a 10K race there today. The group Grandma organizes, a pack for every back, will set up a table in the parking lot so people can learn about the program and give donations. In the car on the way to the park, Aunt Bridget is on the phone with Uncle Reed. He is in London on a business trip. I watch Aunt Bridget's face while she talks to him about Dex and Ruth, and how they are having such fun playing with me. Ruth said something about being a squire, whatever that means, Aunt Bridget says. She sighs and rolls her eyes. Come on, Reed. You know, like a junior knight? I don't know if they fight dragons. Probably. Wouldn't you? She catches my eye and smiles, like we're sharing a joke. Music plays softly on the car stereo. It sounds kind of like the Ray Charles music playing downstairs at Hart House the other night, except it's faster and makes me want to dance. Grandma's fingers tap on the steering wheel in time with the music. I can only see her eyes in the rearview mirror. Even though they are a different color, something about them reminds me of Dad. At the park, Grandma and I set out bright green information flyers and a basket of flat, round pins and green pencils with a pack for every back logo on them. Aunt Bridget takes a clipboard and launches into the crowd. Good morning, Aunt Bridget says to a group of 3 runners stretching under a tree. My name's Bridget Hart. Hi, how are you? She shakes their hands. Her eye contact is spectacular. Her hair shines in a tight ponytail. I'm with a pack for every back. We're an organization that helps families in need get school supplies for their children. Grandma and I sit alone at the table. An oak tree sways overhead. It reminds me of the Everwood trees, only this one is out here all by itself. A scout. Hello, Candace. A man in running shorts waves as he passes us. Grandma waves back, straightens the pile of flyers on the table. It is always strange to me to realize that parents and grandparents have actual names. I find myself wanting to correct the man. Her name is Grandma, sir. A woman with a t-shirt that says "Run, Jane, Run" comes up and grabs a flyer. Candace, you look wonderful, she gushes. And is this Lewis's daughter? Grandma places a soft hand on my arm. Her wedding ring is warm with sunlight. Yes, this is Finley. Finley, this is Roxanne Bates. We help at the library together. Your grandma's the best, says Roxanne Bates, beaming. You look like her, you know. Oh! Here. It's not much, but I hope it helps. She drops a $10 bill into our donation bucket. Grandma smiles. Thank you, Roxanne. That's very generous. Anything for you, Candace. She kisses Grandma's cheek. See you on Thursday? Of course. Roxanne Bates hurries away, calling out someone else's name and waving frantically. When the sun hits her, the glitter on her t-shirt shines a silvery pink. Every now and then someone passing by the table takes a flyer, donates money, or says hello to Grandma, but mostly it is just me and her. I keep checking to make sure I am sitting as straight as she is. You look like her, you know. What an odd thing to say. Grandma is old and has white hair. I am young and have blonde hair. Grandma wears just the right shade of lipstick. I do not know what forks to use. How could I possibly look like her? She starts humming the song we were listening to in the car. I want to say something, but I don't know what. Then I blurt, Ray Charles. Grandma stops humming to look at me. Pardon me? Ray Charles. My cheeks feel sunburned even though we are safely in the shade. Isn't that what you were singing? No, actually, that was Jimmy Reed. Are you a fan of the blues? I don't think so. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know a lot of the songs. We sit there, staring at each other. I know I should say something, but I don't know what. I am distracted by Grandma's sharp blue eyes. What does she see when she looks at me? I tuck some hair behind my ear. I should have combed it better this morning. Grandma's is in a soft, neat bun. Dad says all of you listened to Ray Charles when he was growing up. Out of everything to say, I have to bring up Dad. Grandma's mouth twists into a funny shape, like she has heard something strange and does not know what to make of it. He said that, did he? Grandma straightens the stack of flyers for the 7th time today. Well, yes, we did do that. I wipe my palms on my pants. It occurs to me that most people are probably not this terrified of their grandmothers. But do most grandmothers avoid talking about their sons at dinner? Do most grandmothers keep secrets, like why their granddaughter has never visited? Then Grandma says, we had so many parties, in the summer especially. She pauses. A group of children laugh, chasing one another through the parking lot. She folds her hands on the table, puts them in her lap, returns them to the table. Not big parties, she says, not with anyone else. Just family. We would open the windows and string up lights on the patio. Your grandfather grilled burgers, and we'd turn up Ray Charles and Jimmy Reed and Bessie Smith and B. King. The girls would put their hair in rollers, wear face masks and old dresses from the attic. They'd do it to feel fancy. Old-fashioned Hollywood glamour. Grandma smiles, her voice quiet. There'd be fireflies in the azaleas, and we would dance and eat for hours, and the music would fill up the woods. We only went inside late when the mosquitoes got bad. Sometimes not even then. My heart is in a race with itself. I can see it so clearly that it is like I was there, years ago. Aunt Bridget, Aunt Dee, Stick. Kids like me, all of them short and small. Dad with his floppy hair. Our photo albums at home have some pictures of him looking like that, but they are always pictures of him alone. No sisters, no parents. Grandma stares at her hands. I miss him, Finley. I feel like I am standing on the edge of a cliff. You mean, Dad, we did what we had to do. I thought your father could understand, but I never wanted him to stay away. He chose that, not me. He decided we weren't good enough for him. Do you understand? Have her hands been shaking this whole time? Or have they just started? Yes, I whisper, although I understand nothing. What did she have to do? Why did Dad stay away? Why did he keep me away? Grandma turns to look at me, and I feel like I am actually seeing her now. Like what she has shown me before is a grandma mask, and this is what lies beneath. I open my mouth to say one of several possible things. Grandma, what has happened to your face? Your makeup suddenly looks all wrong on it. Grandma, what did Dad do? Was it something he did? Grandma, tell me more about your blues parties. Tell me more about my dad when he was little. tell me why we never visited. If you miss him, why don't you ever talk to him? My hair falls into my eyes again, and Grandma brushes it away. What does she see when she looks at me? Sorry, I mumble. My hair's kind of messy. Lewis's always was too. Excuse me. A tired-looking man comes up to the table. 2 small boys hang off his leg, and he's giving another one a piggyback ride. Are you Candace Hart? The backpack lady? Grandma's face fills with a silver bright smile. That's me. My kid's teacher told me about your program. Where do I sign up? I watch Grandma talk to this man. She holds one of the kids on her lap while the man fills out 3 forms. She lets them pick out pencils and helps put the pins on their t-shirts. She shakes the man's hand and straightens the kids' collars. When one of them hugs her legs, she bends over and hugs him right back. While they walk away, she watches them go, and she waves when they get to the swing set. Candace Hart. A woman waves from the snack table. I knew you'd be here. Come here. Tell me what's new. Watch the table. Finley. Grandma instructs without looking at me. And tie your shoe, won't you, please? As I watch Grandma head for the snack table, I wonder which is more true. The grandma who knows everyone, who scrubs pans that are already clean, who runs organizations and holds messy kids with crooked collars in her lap. Or the grandma with shaking hands and a tired face. The grandma who hates the Baileys because their house is an embarrassment. The grandma who misses her son. That night I dream of fireflies and of Dad dancing with Grandma in the Everwood beside the old castle in the gray field. When I wake up the next morning, the dream feels thick around me, like a scratchy blanket too heavy for the summer. I find my notebook and start to write a new list. Why my dad left the family because he was called away on an adventure that required him to sacrifice all personal ties. But then he got married, so that can't be it. Unless, am I part of some secret international plot? Unlikely. Because they wanted him to take over Grandpa's business with Uncle Reed, but he didn't want to. But why would that be a secret? Because he was different. Like me. Chapter 12. Building a treehouse is more difficult than I had anticipated, but it had to be done. No quest is complete without a base of operations. However, even with Grandpa's supervision, what we end up with on Tuesday is something more like a tree patio. Once we nail the final board into place, we all step back for inspection. Grandpa is the first to speak. Well, he says, scratching his chin. Now that is something. Specifically, it is a platform 3 feet off the ground, built around a cluster of 3 thick trees. There's a slanted roof, and it has walls on 2 sides. Steps lead up to the front, with a rope ladder hanging off the back. It is one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen. It's ugly, Ruth announces. I thought it would be, up high, in the trees. It's supposed to be a watchtower. Oh, come on, Ruthie. Kennedy adjusts the bandana tied around Ruth's head. This way you can go inside without asking someone for permission. You can also fall off it without breaking your neck, Gretchen points out. Ruth frowns. But it's not high enough to see anything. I'll tear it down then. Grandpa approaches the steps with his crowbar. If you're not going to appreciate it, that is. I am happy to hear a collective gasp of horror. That's what I thought. Grandpa turns to me. Now, remember the ground rules. Not 1 inch outside the pit, like Grandma said. Yes, sir, we all say. And you won't let the twins climb around here by themselves? No, sir. Grandpa looks at each of us like he is searching for evidence of a lie. Gretchen stares back so intensely that I almost crack up. Dex picks his nose and inspects the findings. Satisfied, Grandpa nods. Well, then, go nuts, but not too nuts. And take your shoes off before you come in for dinner. Gretchen asks, what if we didn't? What then? Apocalypse, probably. Once Grandpa has packed up his tools and gone back into the house, I climb inside what we have named the tower and hang the shoe Gretchen and I found from the ceiling by its laces. It dangles over the center of the floor like a bizarre chandelier. Doing this gives me a moment to think. Everyone else is going home after dinner, but Gretchen has talked Stick into letting her stay at Hart House for the rest of the week. On the one hand, out of everyone, Gretchen is the person I know best. On the other hand, I have spent the past 2 days building a tree patio with 5 other people, one of whom is Grandpa, who wears button-down shirts even while building tree patios in the dirt, and I feel a bit like I am crawling inside my own skin. I keep thinking about what Grandma said at the park, about missing Dad, that he was the one who chose to stay away. What does Grandpa think about Dad? Does he miss Dad too? Dad said they talk on the phone, but about what? And how often? And what do they say when they hang up? Do they say I love you? What would those words sound like coming out of Grandpa's mouth? I want to ask him about these things, but whenever I imagine doing so, I freeze up. I have always been better at writing things than saying them. I'm going for a walk, I say, casually, hoping no one will follow. Just a walk to clear my head. That is all I need. Oh, me too. Gretchen loops her arm through mine. I try to pull away. Gretchen, really, it's no big deal. Then Gretchen tenses up beside me. I see him too. It's that Bailey boy, the medium-sized one. He is crouched behind a stump a few yards away, and he is holding our stash of valuables. Gretchen's dolphin, Kennedy's medal, my list of words. I am seized by righteous anger. It was Gretchen's idea to bring the stash out here, to christen our headquarters, even though I protested. How did the Bailey boy slip past all of us without anyone seeing him? Gretchen's hands are in fists. Give that back. Now. The boy grins, winks, and takes off in the other direction. Into the Everwood. With our stuff. Gretchen growls an extremely forbidden word under her breath. I have to agree. We can't let him get away with this. Gretchen snorts. Oh, don't worry. He won't. She yells, back in a sec, over her shoulder. Kennedy whirls. Wait, what? But we ignore her. We don't stop to think about Grandma or Grandpa seeing us. We run. We scoot across the first bridge, jump over ridges and weave through trees, skid down slopes of mud and leaves like surfers. The Bailey boy's laughter floats back to us. Trying to catch him is like trying to catch a shadow. We're losing him. Gretchen shouts. Come on, Finn. I have never run like this in my life. We're practically flying, dodging tree roots and fallen logs like they're nothing. My breathing starts to burn and my side aches. Then Gretchen skids to a halt. Oh man. I catch my breath and blink hard against the sun. We have reached the wasteland, the field with the old gray house. The Bailey boy jumps onto its porch and yells back at us, "Come inside, if you dare." He laughs, slams the door, and disappears. "What'll we do?" Gretchen whispers. "We can't go in there, not with the Baileys inside." A dry summer wind sweeps across the field toward the house. I have to follow it. When the Everwood speaks, only fools choose not to listen. Yes, we can, I say, and we will. Right now. Chapter 13. I start walking toward the house before I can change my mind. The Everwood may be calling me, but I am not an idiot. Going after an enemy on his home turf is a huge risk. Are you crazy? Gretchen runs after me. No. Well, I'm not going in there. You'll have to go by yourself. Fine. Up close, the house looks even worse. A huge hole where the roof is missing opens up one half of the building to the sky. Dark stains cover the house like bruises. Black wooden beams stick out of collapsed walls, and the windows are either smashed or missing. There must have been a fire here. The summer wind blows past me again, and I imagine it is the heat of flames. It shouldn't make sense to shiver when you're hot. This place gives me the creeps. Gretchen pokes through the grass with her foot. Look at all this trash. God, it's like the house threw up or something. Empty bottles, clothes, toys. Ugh. Gretchen kicks away a one-eyed doll wearing a faded red dress. Get away, you freaky little monster. Oh, wow. Would you look at this awesome medal? A voice calls out from inside the house. Gretchen and I both stare up at the second floor, where a tanned hand dangles Kennedy's MVP medal out a window. It sure is shiny, the voice continues. A boy's head pops out, grinning down at us. It's the boy who brought us here, his fangs dark and wild. He slips the medal around his neck. I think I'll keep it. What do you think, Cole? Another, older boy looks out the window. I think you should keep that, and I'll keep this. Cole waves around Gretchen's stuffed dolphin, Echo, and kisses its nose. Oh, what a cutie-wootie whittle dolphin. Stop touching him, you gross. Toe fungus. Gretchen shrieks. Come and stop me, Cole suggests, which makes the other boy crack up. They disappear back inside. I am literally going to knock their heads off, Gretchen growls. She finds a stick and whacks the house with it. Faded green paint flakes off and blows away. Either that or call the cops. They're so getting arrested. Do you have your phone? Hey, where are you going? I follow the trail of garbage behind the house. The backyard is a mess, overgrown trees, grass that comes up to my waist, piles of broken bricks and rotting wood. An old, rusty pickup truck sits off to the side, weeds grown up around its tires. In the corner, back where the woods start up again, is a giant oak tree with curved branches that hang so low you could walk right up and sit on them. I crawl inside the tree's canopy. Above me, the world is green and cool. The grass here is thin. It must not get enough sunlight. I place my hand on a nearby branch. The rough bark feels familiar, like this tree and I are old friends. Then, Gretchen barrels into the tree after me. Do we have a plan here or what? Kennedy will flip if we don't get back soon. Hold on a second, I say. Why? What's going on? I do not know how to tell her about the hot wind whispering to me, or the fact that I think I have fallen in love with a tree. Nothing's going on. My foot catches on a dip in the ground, and I fall. Finn? You okay? I do not answer her. I am staring at the small, gray shape sticking up out of the dirt in front of me. It is so covered with moss and leaves and mud that I can't see much of it. Even so, I know it is a gravestone. There are 3 of them. Holy, are you kidding me? Gretchen squats beside me. Are those what I think they are? She reaches out to touch the nearest one. I slap her hand away. Hey, what was that for? Don't touch them. Why not? The truth is, I want very much to touch them. I want to scrub off that moss and mud and find out who they belong to. But the quiet of this place beneath the tree suddenly seems like it might be a sign. Maybe they don't want to be touched. Gretchen inches away from the gravestones. You mean, like, ghosts? Maybe. I get up and march toward the house. I'd like to know a little bit about them before I stick my nose into their business, is all I'm saying. I creep up the back steps, making sure the wood is steady before I put my weight on it and knock on the door. The wall beside it gapes open, but it feels wrong to step inside without asking. A piece of paper slides out from beneath the door. It says, if you want your stuff, you'll have to steal it back. I shove the paper back into the house. We're not stealing anything. We want to talk to you. It's important. After a minute, the door swings open. 3 boys stand there. The medium-sized one passes a slinky back and forth between his hands, his eyes narrowed. State your business, he says. My name is Finley Hart, and this is my cousin Gretchen. Gretchen nudges me. What are you doing? I'm Jack, says the medium-sized boy. Then he points to the oldest boy. That's Cole. And the little one's Bennett. Bennett waves cheerfully at us. Cole grabs his hand and stops him. You're trespassing, Jack says. You stole our stuff, I reply. He shrugs. Doesn't give you the right to trespass. We want it back. What if we don't give it back? Then we'll call the cops, Gretchen snaps. Bennett's eyes go wide. Cole! No one's calling the cops, Cole says. And even if you did, they don't care about stuff like that. Jack is watching me. I stare right back at him. I am not afraid of pirates. You'll give us our stuff back, I say. You don't look dishonorable. In fact, they do, but flattery might be our best bet in this situation. Huh. Cole grins. Sure we do. We're Baileys. Didn't your grandparents warn you about us? Actually, they did, says Gretchen. Yeah? And what did they say? I don't want Gretchen to make things worse, so I interrupt. Did you know there are gravestones under that tree in the back? Yeah, says Jack. Why do you care? Whose are they? He shrugs. Don't know. Well, didn't you ever try to look? Nah, don't care. Can I clean them off? Gretchen tugs on my sleeve. Finn, let's just go. Why do you care about them? Jack asks me. Because it's disrespectful to leave them dirty, I say. People are supposed to take care of the dead. No one says anything. Jack pulls a piece of paper out of his pocket, my list of favorite words, and carefully smooths out the wrinkles. Is this yours? he asks me. I could snatch it away from him and run, but I stay put. Yes, he reads over the list. Sinister. Footfall. There are a lot of words here. I've worked hard on them. I love words. Jack scratches the back of his head, messing up his hair. He disappears and comes back with our box. Jack, hisses Cole. What are you doing, man? Come on. You can have this back, says Jack, but only if you clean up the gravestones. I think about that. We can't do it today. We have to get home. Then when you come back to clean, you can have your stuff. Gretchen looks ready to bite him. Why can't you clean them off? Jack grins. Because Cole's scared of ghosts and doesn't want to curse our family. Shut up, Jack. Cole pushes him, his face turning red. I just hate cleaning. It's pointless. I hold out my hand. It's a deal. Gretchen protests, Finley. Deal. Jack shakes my hand. His fingers are gritty with dirt. Gretchen grumbles at me as we start across the field toward home. The Everwood wind blows against my sweaty skin, cooling me off. I have an idea and turn around. The part of the house with the roof missing looks like a jagged rib cage. Jack. I call out. Jack comes out onto the front porch. Yeah? Does the house have a name? Not really. Why? We should call it the Bone House. I pause. You know, because of the graves. He nods. Yeah, I like that. We'll come back as soon as we can. Okay. Sorry about all this. I was bored. I wasn't trying to be mean. It's usually the same old stuff around here, you know. I guess. And hey, Finley? Yeah? He shoves his hands in his pockets. Don't worry about your words. I'll keep them safe. I don't say thank you. It seems strange to say thank you to someone who has stolen from you. But I think about Jack's voice all the way home and how he held my list in his hands like he knew it was a piece of my own heart. The orphan girl's sleep turned restless and fitful. Dreams plagued her night hours and followed her into waking dreams about the bone house, the wasteland, the 3 small graves. To clear her head, she took long walks through the forest. Without her friends, and on these walks she saw strange shapes on the edge of her vision. Birds and bats. Long, snake-like vines. Tall, thin, faceless figures. Whenever the orphan girl turned to face these shapes, they disappeared, and all she could see were the Everwood trees, green and gray and fading. One day, however, the figure she saw did not fade. She turned, and there it was, a shadow in the shape of a man in flowing robes. The shape shimmered as if the orphan girl were viewing it through water. "Who are you?" the orphan girl demanded. "I am the wizard," said the shadow. "What wizard?" "The only one." The orphan girl took a careful step away. "Why do you look so strange?" "Because," answered the wizard, "I am no longer here." A tendril of fear rolled down the orphan girl's spine. "You're a ghost." The wizard inclined his head. "Are you here to haunt me?" the orphan girl asked. "I don't think so." "Then why are you here?" The wizard shrugged, his shoulders rippling. "You woke me up." "The graves," the orphan girl whispered. "Are you in one of the graves?" "I was. Now there is only dust and bits of bone." "Was the bone house yours?" The wizard was quiet for a long time. Then he said quietly once, "Long ago." "And the others?" "The other two graves." "Wizards," said the wizard mournfully, "always live in threes, for they are burdened with terrible secrets." "What secrets?" The orphan girl tried to touch his arm, but it was like drawing her hand through icy water. "Do you know what's happening to the Everwood? Why are the trees dying? What are those howls at night?" The wizard's shadowy eyes, darker than the rest of him, were large and soft. "Only you can stop them. That is what the trees tell me. Did you know trees are very fond of ghosts?" "I never would have guessed that, but it appears to be so." The wizard smiled faintly and touched the boughs of a tree. "Hello, my friend." "Thank you. You look nice today, too." "Only I can stop who?" asked the orphan girl. "Beware the ancient guardians," whispered the wizard. The clouds shifted, and in the sunlight the wizard began to fade. They shine as white as snow, but they can be as cruel as winter. Then the wizard was gone. The orphan girl felt a rustling in her pocket, where she kept the wrapped dagger. When she placed her hand on it, she felt a warmth, a softness. But when she withdrew the dagger and held it in the sunlight, it was only that a blade, a hilt. Cold and unmoving. A creeping sensation crawled up her back, nestling in her hair. Someone was watching her. "Find me," whispered the wizard, "from nowhere and everywhere. Find us." And the orphan girl promised, "I will." Chapter 14. It is Friday and I am feeling calm. My cousins are staying over for the weekend, and we are making paper bag monster masks in the dining room. When I lose myself, my insides become a storming sea in which it is very easy to get lost. Even something as simple as breathing feels difficult. But on days like today, the sea is tame, and I hardly feel heavy at all. Why can't every day be like this? Grandma brings us a plate of sugar cookies. She has been baking cookies all morning for the clinic volunteers, and we get the last batch. I'm going to take a nap. The friends of the library meeting last night, baking all day today. I'm completely worn out. She touches Kennedy's golden hair. "Kennedy, are you all right with the twins?" "Yes, ma'am," Kennedy chirps. When Grandma kisses her cheek, Kennedy beams. I concentrate hard on cutting my construction paper into a spiky lion's mane for Dex. I want to ask Grandma to kiss my cheek too, but I haven't seen my cousins ask for kisses. Perhaps they must be earned. A few minutes later, Grandpa comes in. He stands behind Ruth and examines her mask. "What is that?" he asks. "A bear." Ruth puts her mask over her head and growls at Grandpa. "No, it's a monster. Needs more fangs," Grandpa suggests. Ruth takes off the mask and examines it. "Good idea." "I'm off for my drive," Grandpa tells Kennedy. "I'll be back in a little while." I nearly jump out of my chair. This could be my chance to ask him about Dad. "Can I come?" Grandpa raises an eyebrow. "With me?" "You're boring old Grandpa." I'm done with my mask. "Monster? Bear?" I pick it up to show him. "Fox." Grandpa nods. "Good choice." "Come on, then." Grandpa's car smells like leather and air freshener. It's so clean you could eat off the floor mats. I feel fancy sitting beside him in the passenger seat, the polished dashboard in front of me. When he turns on the car stereo, it plays a familiar song, Jimmy Reed. I cry, pointing at the speakers. You like him? I look out the window. I need to calm down and act my age. Yeah, I like him okay. He's one of your grandma's favorites. Your dad's too. That was a long time ago, though. I don't know what he listens to now. Grandpa starts down the long driveway, lined with giant trees. The music plays into silence. I swallow hard. He likes classical music, I say quietly. He listens to it while he writes. He says it helps him think. Oh, what kind of classical music? Beethoven, Mozart, Schubert. Grandpa smiles. Do you know Beethoven's Sixth Symphony? The Pastoral Symphony, I answer in a rush. 8-letter word for about the country. I bite my lip. Why did I say that out loud? I like crossword puzzles too, says Grandpa. Your dad and I used to work on them together when he was little. I can no longer stay calm. We do that. It's a good thing to do, especially when you get older. Keeps the brain sharp. I feel small and huge at the same time, like I could either shrink into a tiny, happy ball or balloon up until I burst into pieces. I sit straight and still in my seat, but my insides are a wild party. At the end of the driveway, Grandpa changes the music to the Pastoral Symphony, and my heart jumps. Where do you think your dad first realized he liked Beethoven? Grandpa pats my hand. I'm glad you're here with me today, Finley. I am in the car with Grandpa. We're talking about Beethoven and crossword puzzles. He is smiling at me. He is smiling at me. He is smiling at me. Why do you go on drives every day? I ask. Grandpa pulls onto the road. It relaxes me. It's nice to get out of the house every now and then, don't you think? Yeah. Where do you go? Anywhere with trees. I grip my seat to keep from flying away. You like trees? I love them. Why do you think I bought Hart House? Because of the Everwood. Grandpa laughs. I forgot you kids call it that. How'd you decide on the name? It's really quite nice. I'm good at naming things, I say, and soon I am telling him all about my notebook, my lists, my stories, the different Everwood creatures. I do not tell him about the stories I have written since arriving here. Those are still in progress, and I get the feeling he would not be happy if he knew I'd been out to the Bone House. Grandpa listens to every word. Then he says, "Oh, Finley, you're so like your dad." My heart is a pounding drum. I am. Absolutely. He was always writing stories too when he was little. Sometimes he'd write plays, and he and the girls would get all dressed up in the most ridiculous clothes. Skirts and scarves and raincoats, whatever they could find. They'd put on these plays in the foyer, you know, where those doors open into the living room. I nod, imagining it. Beethoven's Violin Soar. Did you and Grandma watch? Every single one. Your grandma made me, even the ones we'd already watched 1,000 times. Your Aunt Bridget always liked to do things over and over until they got it just right. And your grandma would sit and watch each performance like it was the first one every time. She'd clap in all the right places. She was so good about that, Finley. She always has been. Good about what? The family thing. Everyone eats dinner together. Everyone cleans house together. Everyone takes turns telling about their day, and everyone else has to listen. You know? Things like that. Not every family does that, but ours always did. And it was because of her. Grandpa's face is so soft that looking at it is kind of embarrassing, like I am spying on a secret. When I try to imagine Dad talking about Mom like this, I can't. I scratch the dry spot on my knee over and over. I wasn't always good at being a dad, Grandpa says, but your grandma was always good at being a mom. I think about Grandma at the park, the little boy with the crooked collar in her lap. Was Dad messy when he was little? Grandpa bursts out laughing. Oh, goodness, yes. They all were, except for Bridget, of course. Your dad and Stick would always come in from outside with muddy shoes and scraped knees. Everything was an adventure. We were quiet for a while. Grandpa turns onto a road with woods on one side and fields of crops on the other. I watch the rows of corn flash by. The stalks are still small, but by the end of summer, they'll be taller than Dad. Grandpa? When you and Dad talk on the phone, what do you say? Grandpa gently taps his thumbs against the steering wheel. Well, we talk about you a lot. Your mom. Your grandma. He tells me about his classes and about his writing. I tell him about my golf scores and about his sisters, your cousins. I flex and point my bare feet. Kennedy painted my toenails pink. Grandpa? Yes. Do you love him? Your dad? Yeah. Grandpa sighs. It is a tired, heavy sound. I do, very much. Then why? Why are you just now meeting us? Why does your dad stay away? I nod. My voice catches in my throat. I'm going to tell you something, Finley, Grandpa says, and I want you to listen carefully because it's important. Okay. Your grandma had it hard, growing up. Nothing end of the world terrible, but not much love and not much money. Her parents were always fighting, always spending money on things they shouldn't. Once your grandma had her own family, she decided that this time things would be different. She was going to do whatever she could to make things good for her kids, make the kind of family she always wished she'd had, and she wasn't going to let anything get in her way. I think about that while the symphony's third movement begins. Did Dad get in the way? She and your dad, they had a disagreement, and they could never settle it. They got madder and madder at each other until your dad got tired of being mad and left. And that was that. I try to imagine being so mad at Mom that I would leave her forever, but I cannot do it. Were you mad at him too? A little, Grandpa admits. Mostly I wanted them to figure out a way to make peace, but his voice trails off. The symphony dances on happily, which seems really rude of it. Grandpa? Yes, Finley. Does Grandma hate me like she hates Dad? Grandpa pulls the car over and looks right at me. She doesn't hate your dad. She loves him, and she loves you, Finley. She loves you more than she knows how to say. My eyes fill up with tears. Then why won't they say sorry and get over it? Sometimes things are too big for sorry. Grandpa wipes my cheeks with a handkerchief embroidered with his swirly initials, WH, but I don't think they'll always be that way. You being with us this summer is big, Finley. It's tremendous. Maybe it's a step. A baby step. That's what life is, you know. A bunch of baby steps, one after another, and sometimes you fall, but you always get back up, and eventually you get where you're going. And hopefully you have people beside you to help you up when you need it. That's where family comes in. I have many questions left, but they can wait. Right now I will nod and let Grandpa hug me, and I will think about how he loves Dad after all. Grandpa's shirt is white and wrinkle-free. He smells like laundry and this morning's pancakes. The sunlight makes his face look older than usual, but I like it. I imagine each wrinkle is a year, and each year was a good one. Shall we keep going? Grandpa tucks his handkerchief away. There's a farm stand down this way that sells the best strawberries you've ever tasted. Strawberries are my favorite, I tell him. He squeezes my hand. They're your grandma's, too. As we get back onto the road, Grandpa skips the next movement in the symphony, the one where there's a storm, and goes right to the last movement, where the sun comes back out and everything sounds like flying. I don't mind. Chapter 15. That night after dinner, we are sitting in the tower shelling pecans when the Bailey boys show up. Dex sees them a split second before I do. "Pirates," he yells. I clap my hand over his mouth. The adults absolutely cannot know the Baileys are out here. Gretchen leaps to her feet and raises her stick high. "Come any closer and I'll poke your eyes out." "No, you won't." I jump down from the tower. We said we'd come back when we could. "What do you want?" Jack kneels before me. His brothers on either side of him do the same. "Noble orphan girl, we are here to beg your forgiveness for our thievery the other day. Indeed, it is crazy boring around here, and we think it would be less boring if you were our friends and not our enemies." I stare at him, trying not to laugh. He looks so serious. Ruth peeks out from under her monster mask, which she has not taken off all day. "What? Why are you talking like that?" Gretchen snaps. "How do you know she's the orphan girl?" We listen. Jack says matter-of-factly, "You guys talk louder than you think. Plus, we're excellent spies," Cole adds. "We brought cookies," Bennett announces. Cole glares at him. Gretchen perks up. "Cookies?" I try to remain uncompromising. 14-letter word for, "I will not change my mind, no matter what." "You're not supposed to be over here," I say. "That wasn't part of our deal." Kennedy grabs my hand and whispers, "What deal?" "Finley, this is not cool." "It's okay," Cole says quickly. "We're not messing with you, promise." He pauses. "Kennedy, right?" Kennedy puts her hands on her hips. Yeah, I've seen you at school." He smiles a little. "Hi." "Great." "Hi." Somebody tell me what's going on before I get Grandpa. We tell Kennedy about the wasteland, the bone house and its graves. How the Bailey boys stole our dues, and the deal we made to get them back. I see. 1 second. Kennedy pulls me aside. "Okay, this is so not allowed. We're not supposed to leave the pit, and we're definitely not supposed to go back into the woods that far. And you made a deal with the Baileys?" "I'm sorry. It's just, we had to get our stuff back, and then the Everwood said, the Everwood said. Kennedy blows hair out of her face. Finley, listen. I know you've got this great imagination, and that's awesome. And I know we're supposed to let you do your thing and be super nice to you. But suddenly I feel about 5 inches tall. Who told you to be nice to me? It's no big deal. Grandma just told me. Don't be mad, okay? She just said you're kind of sensitive and to try not to upset you. Kennedy pauses, biting her lip. You know, because of the stuff with your parents. I cross my arms over my chest. Kennedy's eyes are so sweet and blue, looking at me like a worried mom, like Aunt Dee did that first night at dinner, when she seemed like she was afraid I would start crying any second. I want to melt into the dirt. There's nothing wrong with my parents, I say quietly. Kennedy puts a soft hand on my arm. Sure, I know that. Grandma doesn't know what she's talking about, okay? Okay. Hey. Kennedy's fingers pry mine loose. Her hand squeezes mine. You're all right. I squeeze her hand back and she smiles at me. If it makes you feel any better, Jack says loudly, interrupting us, we've brought a few things to prove you can trust us. Cole opens his backpack and nods at Bennett, who is bouncing on his toes. Bennett pulls out a handheld telescope, a bag of cookies, 2 flashlights, and a cloth banner decorated with painted vines and leaves and huge letters that say welcome to the Everwood. Everyone gasps. Kennedy lets go of me to run her fingers along the banner's edge. I almost grab her hand back and then remind myself I am 11 years old and am not sensitive. I can stand here by myself like a normal person. I clench my hands into fists at my sides. Who made this? Kennedy asks. It's beautiful. Cole clears his throat and looks at the ground. I did. It took me 2 whole nights. Kennedy drops her hand. Her cheeks are red. And one more thing. Jack reaches into his own backpack and draws out a small, rusted mailbox painted with vines like the banner. A tiny flag sticks up from the top, yellow, with a green leaf painted in the center. That's the Everwood flag, Jack says proudly. Gretchen looks ready to explode. You can't just make the flag for everyone. This is our thing. Fine, we'll vote on it. And if you don't like it, I'll make another one. I figure we can put it by the river, between our houses, by that group of trees. Jack points down the river. It'll be good for planning things, like when to meet at the Bone House to hang out. This way your grandparents don't have to see you talking to us. Gretchen snatches up the cookies. I try to ignore how wonderful this mailbox is. Why do you want to be our friends? Our families don't like each other. Jack shrugs and shoves his hands in his pockets. I don't know. Nobody'll tell me why our families don't like each other, so I figure it's a dumb reason. And you seem fun. And it's summer. And like I said, we're bored. Bennett wipes his nose on the back of his hand and grins up at me. So, orphan girl, Jack says, what do you think? Do we have a deal? When I don't answer right away, Cole asks, do you always do what your grandparents tell you to do? I am not sure how to respond. What about your parents? Do they care if you talk to us? Jack puts a hand to his heart. Alas, we have no parents. We are in the custody of a gargantuan, poisonous troll. With each word, he takes a step closer to the tower and then lunges at Dex and Ruth with his finger crooked like a pirate's hook. Dex screams. Ruth growls. Bennett stares at Ruth's mask and tugs on Jack's shirt. Jack, he whispers, I want a mask too. Gretchen remains unimpressed. You are not in the custody of a troll. What kind of troll? I say. Jack buzzes. What kinds of trolls live in the Everwood? I think fast. I haven't thought about there being trolls in the Everwood before. Well, there are the fell folk who have scaly hides like alligators and can swallow a deer whole. Their breath smells like 1,000 rotting corpses. Kennedy shudders. That's so gross, Finn. Oh, yeah, says Jack. The troll guarding us is definitely one of those. But we can pretty much do whatever we want, as long as we don't wake him up. So, Jack puts out his hand. Do we have a deal? I gather my cousins together for a conference. Gretchen is digging into the cookies and seems much happier about life in general. Finley, I don't know. Kennedy keeps looking over at the Baileys. I can't tell if she's worried or curious. How can we trust them? We just can. Why? Because the Everwood said so? I will not feel embarrassed. Yes. She shakes her head sadly. Kennedy, please. Don't you want to see the bone house? It's so cool, Gretchen says, her mouth full of cookie. Like haunted house in the movies cool. Like if a tiger and a dragon had a baby cool. I grab Kennedy's hands. Please, Kennedy. Kennedy sighs and rolls her eyes. Fine, fine. She marches over to shake Jack Bailey's hand. We have an accord, she says in an official tone of voice. And just like that, an alliance is born. Chapter 16. It is Saturday after dinner, and Avery has retreated to her bedroom like usual. Her door swings open before I can knock. I thought I heard you fidgeting out here, Avery says, half smiling. What do you want? I glance past her and see sheets of paper strewn across her bed. Her hands are covered with charcoal smudges. So, I can totally be casual. Drawing. Nah. Cooking. I blush. Yeah. I mean, sorry. Seriously, kid, you need to chill. What's up? I take a deep breath. Well, okay. So, we're all going outside to play for a while. What else is new? And Grandpa and Grandma are downstairs, and the other adults are too. Okay. So, if they ask you where we are, can you say we're just playing outside? Don't let them come looking for us. Avery raises an eyebrow. You want me to lie for you? It's not lying, I say quickly. Not really, anyway. We will be playing outside. We will just be farther away than usual. And with the Baileys. And we will not be playing so much as we will be exploring a certainly condemned house. We don't want them to worry. Not that there's any reason for them to worry. It's just we don't want them bothering us. Please, Avery. I promise we'll be safe. I promise. 5 seconds pass. Avery sighs and goes back into her bedroom. Fine. Don't die, okay? I hurry downstairs before she can change her mind. The 5 of us, me, Gretchen, Kennedy, Jack, and Cole, meet by the mailbox and trek through the Everwood. The fading sunlight is the color of Grandma's pale pink azaleas, and our pockets are full of flashlights. Kennedy carries a bucket of cleaning supplies, and Gretchen has a box of trash bags. I hope we get them back before Grandma notices they're missing. This was my idea, and if we are caught, it will be my fault. We made the little ones stay behind this time. First, we must scout the area. Ruth would only agree to silence once we snuck her an extra scoop of ice cream after dinner. Kennedy keeps taking out her phone and checking to make sure we still have a signal. I don't know about this. Cole moves closer to her. It's okay. We've come out here for a while now. It's safe enough. Ahead of me, Gretchen slices through the undergrowth with her stick. When the grass turns dry and scratchy, I look up. There it is, the bone house. Jack whoops and runs ahead. We follow him inside to the kitchen, where a folding card table is covered with boxes of cereal, 3 apples, decks of cards, empty root beer bottles, a ratty baseball cap, and a worn-out copy of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. For school, Jack explains. Summer reading. It's not half bad, though. He sits in one of the folding chairs and thunks his heels right on top of Tom Sawyer. Welcome to the Bone House. First-time visitors must pay a fee. Gretchen frowns. What kind of fee? You have to talk in English accents for the rest of the night, Cole suggests. Even after we go home? Jack's eyes light up. Yes, definitely. For the rest of the weekend. Kennedy giggles. Everyone will think we're so weird. That's the point. I halfway listen to them while I walk around the kitchen. It is scattered with signs that someone once lived here, shattered coffee mugs, pots and pans piled in a corner. A framed piece of cloth embroidered with the words "Welcome Home" hangs in the corner by one nail. The refrigerator, oven, and sink are all full of charred trash, rotting cabinets, pieces of wall and ceiling. Everything is black and warped, like the bicycle Gretchen and I found. Gretchen and Cole gather a deck of cards and start a game of war while Kennedy puts on a pair of pink rubber gloves and starts bagging up trash like she was born to do it. I cannot imagine what Grandma would think if she saw this place. She would probably not be able to sleep until it was as good as new. Weird, huh? Jack comes up beside me. Everything looks normal, but completely messed up at the same time. Once I tried looking through some of their stuff, just to see, but it freaked me out too bad. Never did it again. We try to only touch whatever we bring from home. Why? Cole's idea. Bad luck, he says. The curse thing. I stare up at the ruined ceiling. I wonder how long it's been abandoned. Is the whole house like this? Yeah. Come on, I'll show you. Jack leads me through the first floor. What used to be the living room has no roof, but the brick chimney is still mostly standing. There is a flower-patterned love seat stained gray and yellow, stuffing spilling out of the cushions. A tiny bookshelf still holds a few books, but most are on the floor, burned black and crisp, scattered in piles. There are heaps of trash, charred planks of wood, a ceiling fan with 2 blades missing and the light bulbs shattered. Except for the chimney, that far wall of the house is completely gone. Upstairs is worse, Jack says quietly. We walk back through the living room and up the stairs. Jack puts a hand on my arm when we get to the landing, and I jump. Careful. He points to a missing part of the floor. Don't step there. We scoot around the hole and into the only remaining bedroom. It's dark up here, and Jack turns on a flashlight. Piles of trash sit along the walls. They remind me of shadow monsters you might see in a junkyard, full of torn clothes, melted plastic toys, pieces of wall, pieces of doors, pieces and pieces and pieces of someone else's life. The beam from Jack's flashlight hits a shard of glass, mostly hidden beneath a mound of clothes and a graveyard of stuffed animals stained with ash. Wait, over here. I crouch by the window, where Cole dangled Kennedy's MVP medal out for me and Gretchen to see. Jack follows me with his light, and I dig until I find what I'm looking for. It's a picture, Jack says, looking over my shoulder. A family picture? The glass is cracked, and the photograph is stained from water or fire or maybe something else. I try to wipe some of it away, and through the smoky stains I see a man with blue eyes, a woman's smile, a kid's feet in 2 pale pink shoes. Child size 11. For the left foot. I squint hard. It's a man, a woman, and a kid. She's little. 3 people, Jack says. 3 graves. We look at each other for 2 seconds before hurrying downstairs and out the back door. On our way out, I grab a towel, an ice scraper, and a bottle of water from our bucket. Where are y'all going? Gretchen asks. Come watch me kick Coles, but at war. Don't you dare wander off, Finley Hart, Kennedy calls out. You swore you wouldn't. Jack and I ignore them, picking our way through the trash-filled backyard to the sound of cicadas pulsing in the trees. A train horn wails in the distance. Once we're under the big oak tree, we find the gravestones and get to work, yanking off weeds and scraping away moss. Jack doesn't speak, and neither do I. He looks serious in the flashlight's glow. A grasshopper flits against my leg, but I don't even scream. We scrub at the layers of caked-on mud until the towel is ruined and we run out of water. My fingers and leg muscles ache, and I am getting eaten alive by mosquitoes, but I don't much care. Finley? Flashlights bob through the leaves, and the others join us. I hear the buzz of another grasshopper, and Kennedy shrieks. Jack tells them all to hush. Don't make so much noise. We don't want to disturb them. Who? Gretchen peers around us to see the work we've done. The Travers family, I answer quietly and point at the gravestones. Some of the engraved letters are hard to make out, and we could not clean everything completely, at least not tonight. But we can see enough to read their names. Cynthia Travers, born March 24th, 1986, died April 17th. 1994, Joy Travers, born September 3rd. 1958, died April 17th. 1994, Frank Travers, born March 1st. 1954, died April 20th. 1994, Holy God, Gretchen whispers, creeping closer. One of them was a kid? Seriously, guys, this is messed up, Cole says. I told you not to touch these things. It's fine, Cole. Jack shows him the framed picture we found. Look, it's them. Oh, great. So you found a creepy picture of dead people. Is this supposed to make me feel better? Come on, don't you get it? Now we know the names of the people who used to live here. Cole grabs Jack's shoulders. I did not want to know this. It's freaky. The dad died a few days after the mom and daughter, Kennedy points out, trailing her fingers across Frank Travers's gravestone. Why do you think that is? Gretchen stares at the graves. Mom said my dad never wanted to be buried. They burned him and sprinkled his ashes across the farm where he grew up. Everyone grows quiet. Your dad's dead? Cole asks. Yeah, but I was really little. I don't remember him. Can you imagine being buried? I wouldn't want to be stuck underground for all eternity. You'd be dead, Jack points out. Yeah, but I'd still know. How? She glares at him. I just know, okay? I don't like this. Cole edges back toward the tree's outer branches. Maybe we should go home. Wuss, Jack declares. Cole cusses at him, but I am thinking about what Gretchen said and not really listening. Being buried, the weight of all that dirt and rock on top of you, and you yourself sealed into a coffin. No air, no breeze, no sounds. I am not sure I have ever imagined anything so terrible. I want to leave. I must leave. Now. I cannot breathe. No matter how hard I try to force down the feeling, my chest is shifting and sliding away from me. It is a cascade of things, being spooked by my surroundings. Imagining the body of Gretchen's dad being burned, and wondering if part of you, even if you are dead, can still feel things like that. Wondering why Frank Travers died a few days after his family, and what kinds of horrible things he must have been thinking during that time, all alone, with no one around to ask him if he was okay. Any sadness I may feel is nothing compared to what he must have been feeling, or what Stick must have felt when her husband died. I have no right to my sadness when there are dead families and burned houses. The memories of all the sadness I have ever experienced come rushing back to me in a stream. Days when I could not smile, when I felt heavy and pushed down. Nights when I could not sleep. Mornings when I could not wake up. These moments of sadness seem so small now. They seem pathetic. Finley? Jack nudges me. I jerk away. In these moments, when I am close to losing myself, one of the worst things that can happen is for someone to unexpectedly touch me. When I am like this, my body feels stretched tight, like it is working extra hard to keep me together, and the slightest touch might send me cracking open. Are you okay? Jack says. You look funny. I do not answer him. I crawl through the branches of the oak and escape into the open backyard, but not even fresh air can get rid of this fear living like bugs underneath my skin. This fear that I have no reason to feel. There is no reason for the heaviness I can feel pressing down on me. Like when you step outside before a storm and the air feels heavy and damp, like you're drinking it instead of breathing. Like that, but worse. It seems wrong to feel these things while standing in front of this poor, broken bone house. I ought to be able to get rid of these feelings, right? Shouldn't I be able to live in my beautiful, clean house, which is not burned, with my family, who are still alive, and be happy about it? I ought to be able to get rid of these feelings. I will get rid of these feelings. I walk circles around the house, close my eyes, and listen for the sounds of the everwood trees, back in the thick part of the forest. I focus on pushing these feelings down to a place where they cannot touch me anymore. I will push on them until they have nowhere else to go but out of my head entirely. Chapter 17. It is Wednesday morning. The house is quiet because Kennedy, Dex, and Ruth stayed over last night, but they're still asleep. I did not fall asleep until 4 in the morning. Since exploring the bone house and cleaning off the Travers family gravestones, I have had trouble sleeping. Once my head hits the pillow, my thoughts start spinning and spinning. I think of being buried, and being buried alive, and being burned alive, and Hart House falling down around me, and what my parents are doing, and what the Travers family look like, and what the bone house will look like once we clean it, and what the upcoming school year will be like, and what story I will write next about the Everwood, and how quiet the house is around me, and how everyone else is sleeping, and why I can't seem to sleep, and my brain just will not stop. I creep out of my bedroom, my mouth dry and my head heavy. Soft, cheerful music and the smell of pancakes drift up the stairs. In the kitchen, Grandma stands at the stove wearing her pearls. Her white apron is spotless. Grandma? I have a question. Grandma clucks her tongue. How about good morning, Grandma? I mean, good morning. Sorry. Did you sleep well? Finley asks Aunt Dee, passing me a bowl of strawberries, ones I picked out with Grandpa. Aunt Bridget swirls her glass of orange juice in one hand. I hope Dex and Ruth didn't keep you up too late. You all seemed to be constantly whispering last night. I am quite certain Aunt Bridget's orange juice has alcohol in it. Aunt Bridget hardly ever drinks something that does not have alcohol in it. Her drinks smell bitter and sour, even drinks that are supposed to be sweet, like orange juice. Even though Aunt Bridget smiles a lot, her eyes are thorny, like she is always picking apart everything she sees to make sure nothing is hiding from her. Maybe she knows this and matches her drinks to her eyes. I slept fine, I lie. Uncle Nelson looks up from his newspaper. He is working on a crossword puzzle before leaving for work, so I scoot closer to see. Kennedy hasn't been able to stop talking about these games y'all have been playing, says Uncle Nelson. I told her she was too old for that kind of thing, but she told me I was being ridiculous. She's probably right. He frowns at the puzzle, appearing to be stumped. 8-letter word for family tree subject. I have to think about that one. They call it the Everwood. Aunt Bridget looks at me over the top of her glass. Isn't that right? The word sounds so strange coming from Aunt Bridget that I consider denying it, pretending that Dex and Ruth are silly 8-year-olds. Aunt Dee starts folding a pile of fluffy, cream-colored hand towels. What's the Everwood, sweetie? Is it some kind of code word? No, I say. The crossword puzzle is distracting me. It's a forest full of witches and trolls and things. Ancestry. I tap the newspaper. The word is ancestry. Uncle Nelson smiles. Hey, you're pretty good at this, kiddo. I collect words. Dad does crossword puzzles all the time. I help him. Does he? Tell me. Finley, says Aunt Bridget, did your dad ever tell you he felt bad for keeping you away from your family all your life? Did he ever mention that? I freeze. Aunt Dee stops folding. Bridget says Grandma, her back to us. That's enough. The pancake batter sizzles in its pan. I'm sorry, says Aunt Bridget, although she doesn't sound it. I just think it's ridiculous that this is the first time I'm seeing my niece. You know, if he and Gwen weren't having problems, I don't think they'd have ever brought her. Grandma slams down her spatula. Bridget, that is enough. The sound is an explosion. No one in this house yells unless it is to call someone in from another room, and even then Grandma makes whoever it is stop at once. She leans heavily against the countertop, her face pale. Mom? Aunt Bridget sets down her drink and hurries over, Aunt Dee right behind her. They hover around her like birds. What is it? Aunt Dee puts her hand on Grandma's forehead. Your skin's clammy. Have you eaten yet? Grandma waves her away. In a flash, she looks like herself again. I'm fine. Just a little dizzy. She tugs her apron straight and smiles at my aunts. Good thing it's almost breakfast time, I suppose. I had such a light dinner last night. Aunt Dee smiles too, but Aunt Bridget looks pulled too tight, like she's waiting for something to crash. Aunt Dee grabs her hand, squeezes. Uncle Nelson returns to his newspaper. In the span of 10 seconds, we are all back to where we started. I want to say something about how uncomfortable I feel, and about how something is obviously very wrong, even if they do not want to admit it, but I am not brave enough to do it. You had a question, Finley? Grandma says. Aunt Dee is back in her chair, peering at Uncle Nelson's crossword puzzle. Aunt Bridget sips her drink. Finley? Grandma looks up, shoots me a bright smile. She holds a plate of pancakes. You had a question? I could go ahead and ask Grandma to take me to the library. That's why I came in here, and everyone is acting normal now, so why not? Ask away, Finley. But I don't want to ask Grandma anything. She was just shaking a few seconds ago. She needs to eat. She needs to sit down. She needs something. Why does no one else say that? I want to hug her, but if I touch her, she might break. No, never mind, I tell her. I figured it out. Chapter 18. Things I know about the Everwood. The Everwood. The green, Grandma and Grandpa's backyard. The great castle, Hart House. The tower, our tree patio. The pit. The first bridge, the sewer pipe. The wasteland where the bone house is. The bone house, the Travers house. The Troll's Keep, the Bailey house. The post office, our mailbox. The Baileys. Cole, 13, Jack, 12, Bennett, 8. Captives of the Fellfolk Troll. Obviously not true, but I must accept this explanation until I find more information. Jack's dad, Fellfolk Troll, I assume, did something bad when Dad was a teenager. Can't be trusted. Why? The something bad, don't ask Grandma and Grandpa about it. Why? Jack's mom, where is she? The bone house. Severely burned. Lots of fire damage. Once home to Frank, Joy, and Cynthia Travers, we think. All deceased. What happened? What started the fire? I stare at my list for a long time. Aunt Dee is taking me to the library instead of Grandma, because when I finally felt brave enough to ask her, she said she was too tired. Grandma says that a lot, and I understand. I am always tired too, and I don't do half the things she does. Friends of the library meetings, a pack for every back, the WIC clinic, baking for the neighbors. So get it together, Finley. Wake up. According to the note Jack left at the post office, he and his brothers want to meet us at the tower after dinner. I must show up with answers of some kind, why the fire happened, and how it happened, and how the Travers family died, and if that really is their house, or if we have somehow gotten it all wrong. Not because my cousins expect me to find answers, but because maybe if I do find some, I will be able to sleep better. Luckily, the library is about a 30-minute drive because Hart House is so far out past the edge of town, so I have time to look over my list a few times. Aunt Dee, however, is distracting. I watch her from the back seat. She offered me the front, but I wanted to sit back here where she couldn't read my list. She chews on the inside of her lip, and her knuckles are white on the steering wheel. Aunt Dee, are you okay? Oh, sweetheart, I'm fine. She reaches back to pat my knee. We ride in silence for a minute. Aunt Bridget shouldn't have said those things about your parents. I'm sorry she did. It's all right. It was out of line. Aunt Dee keeps looking back at me in the rearview mirror, like she is afraid I might fly away. Her hair is soft and gold, curled right above her shoulders. Her face is soft, her voice is soft. I often find myself thinking I would like to snuggle up in her lap and read, because it looks like a cozy place to do such a thing. It's only that she loves you so much, Finley, she says. We all do, and it's hard to accept that you've been away from us for so long. But how can you love me? You only met me, 3 weeks ago. We stop at a red light, and Aunt Dee turns around in her seat to look at me. Finley, it isn't about when we met you, or how long it's been, or anything as complicated as that. It's about family. You're a heart. You're ours, and we're yours. It's in the blood, okay? It's in the bones. I cannot find any words to say after that, so instead I reach toward the front seat and take Aunt Dee's hand. Gretchen told me that. About heart blood. Aunt Dee smiles. Gretchen's a smart girl, like you. I knew you would be. Louis was always the clever one. Aunt Dee's eyes look like Kennedy's, but older. Crystal clear blue. Do you love Dad, too? Even though what? Why? Why? Even though, Aunt Dee says firmly, squeezing my hand. He's my brother. You can't get rid of that kind of love. Then how come he stayed away? A car horn honks behind us. The light is green. Shoot. Aunt Dee starts driving again. I think she has forgotten my question. Then she says, that's his question to answer, Finley. Not mine. Aunt Dee taps her fingers on the steering wheel for a few seconds. Well, how about some music? What do you say? Aunt Dee looks at me in the rearview mirror. I'm not sure what else to do, so I smile. Her eyes crinkle back at me, and she turns on the radio. I do not press the issue. I am a smart girl. Downtown Billington is 4 streets running from north to south, and 4 streets running perpendicular to them from east to west, and a courthouse in the center square, and tiny shops that look like they have existed there since the beginning of time. The library is across the street from the courthouse, in a pale purple building that used to be a movie theater, according to Aunt Dee. I'll be next door at the grind, okay? Aunt Dee kisses my cheek. Here's my library card. Come get me when you've finished. Watching her disappear into the cafe, I get the sense she is relieved to not be in the car with me anymore. The feeling is mutual. Aunt Dee is nice, but I need some space to think. The library is exactly what it should be. Lots of dark wood and winding bookshelves, and a smell of computers and old books in the air. I stand in the middle of the room and consider where to begin. Can I help you? A librarian peeks around her computer to smile at me. Perhaps. I set down my notebook on her desk. I'm from out of town. My name is Finley Hart. Oh, are you the granddaughter who's visiting for the summer? Who is this woman, and how does she know about my life? Excuse me? Hi, I'm Pam. She holds out her hand. Cautiously, I shake it. Finley, your grandma's been talking about your visit for weeks now. She's the president of the Friends of the Library and comes around all the time. I'm so happy you're here. Your grandparents are just the sweetest people. They've done so much for Billington. But why would Grandma have been talking about me? I suppose she must have been excited. Or maybe she was pretending to be excited. Or maybe, once I arrived, she realized what a disappointment I was, that I am too much like my dad, and felt her excitement drain away. They've done a lot for Billington? Pam beams at me. You bet. Can I show you? Pam leads me to a glass display in the library lobby. She points to an old photograph, and sure enough, there are my grandparents, standing in front of the library. They look like themselves and not like themselves at the same time. Grandma's hair is golden instead of white. Grandpa's face has fewer wrinkles. Beside them stands a man in a suit holding a giant pair of scissors. That's Mayor Calvin, Pam explains. He's ancient now, but isn't he handsome here? I guess. See, they're opening the new library. Your grandparents put a lot of money into renovating it. You should have seen this place before they donated. We had such a sparse collection. There was mold, the roof was leaking, mice had chewed through the wiring. Without your grandparents' help, we might not be having this conversation today. Pam sighs happily. And it's not only the library. I guess, what was it? A couple decades ago, they started really pouring a lot of money into downtown, restoring buildings, planting trees. I stare hard at the photograph. The 3 teenage girls standing beside my grandparents are unmistakably Aunt Bridget, Aunt Dee, who looks so much like Avery that I wonder if it is Avery, somehow having traveled back in time, and Stick. A teenage boy stands a little apart from them, looking away from the camera, as if he is wishing he were somewhere else. I know that look. It's how I look in photographs. I touch the glass. That's my dad. He looks weird. Pam laughs. You mean young? No, not quite. What I mean is, I know my father met my mother in their first year of college. That could not have been very long after this picture was taken. And thinking about my father meeting my mother, both of them looking so young, makes my chest tight and uncomfortable, like I am seeing something I should not see. I wonder if Mom and Dad knew, in those first moments when they met, that they would get married and have a daughter named Finley. That they would start working too much and ignoring each other and fighting with each other, the whole time pretending everything was okay. I wonder if they knew that when they started to pretend, their daughter would be able to tell. Anyway, I'm probably boring you, says Pam, leading me back to her desk. What can I do for you, Finley? I'm trying to solve a mystery. Oh, that sounds fun. How can I help? I glanced down the list in my notebook, playing with the curly strips of paper from where I ripped out my favorite words list. I'm looking for information about a man named Frank Travers and his wife, Joy, and his daughter, Cynthia, I say at last. And also about the Bailey family. I don't know the parents' names, but I know the kids' names. They live across the river from my grandparents. And I paused. I do not want to say this part out loud, but I must. And also about any fires in the area. About 25 years ago, maybe? Stay cool, Finley. Stay casual. Pretend you know nothing about those gravestones. When my dad was a teenager, when Mr. Bailey was a teenager too, he did bad things. He's not safe to be around, and if he has kids now, I'd bet they're not much different. But Dad's wrong about that last part, at least. Jack's safe, and Cole and Bennett are too. They wouldn't do anything dangerous. Would they? The Travers fire, Pam says quietly, nodding. I remember hearing about it from my dad. I have read about out-of-body experiences, but I have never had one myself until now. My mind seems to drift out of my head and float there, observing, while my body stares at Pam. The Travers fire. Hearing it said like that makes it feel real. Like before now it was just this story in the Everwood, and now it is more. It has a history of past. Pam places her hand on mine. I'm not sure you want to hear about it, Finley. It isn't a happy story. She tilts her head. I'm surprised your grandparents haven't told you. If they haven't, then maybe I shouldn't. I slip my hand away from hers. Please, I'd like to know. I like all kinds of stories. I'll tell Grandma about everything when I get home, and we'll discuss it together. I promise. Or not. After a pause, Pam starts typing away on her keyboard. She shows me articles on her computer. She prints documents. She babbles on and on, telling me words too awful to stick. They jump and slip around in my skull like panicked fish, and it is hard to get a grip on them, but I try. I scribble in my notebook. I must get this information out of my head and onto paper. Aunt Dee comes up behind me. Finley, you about done? I jump and slam my notebook closed. Yeah, I'm fine. Why? Aunt Dee takes a sip of her coffee and looks at me funny, but Pam hurries over before she can say anything. Dee, hi. Pam gives her a hug. Good to see you. I was just helping Finley with some research, I interrupt. For a story I'm writing. Thanks, Pam. Now Pam's the one giving me a funny look. Well, thank you so much for helping her, says Aunt Dee. I'll see you at choir practice this weekend? Sure. Oh, that reminds me, is your mom okay? Grandma? Aunt Dee frowns. What do you mean? Of course she is. I was only asking because she missed our Friends of the Library meeting last week. Didn't leave a message or anything. It was so unlike her, and I wanted to make sure everything was all right. Auntie freezes for a tiny second and then relaxes into a smile. Oh, that? Yes, I'm afraid we've all been a little behind on things since Finley arrived. Aunt Dee squeezes my shoulder, trying to make up for lost time, you know? The kids have been over almost every day, and Mom's been cooking up a storm. Pam smiles at me. I should have guessed. The famous Finley. Maybe if you have enough of your grandma's cooking, you won't ever want to leave. Her chicken spaghetti is my absolute favorite thing in the world, honest to God. Auntie says something, laughing, and Pam says something back, and somehow my feet are taking me out of the library, but I don't realize it until the sunlight hits me. I don't get it, I tell Auntie. Grandma said she went to that meeting. Auntie marches to the car beside me. You must have heard her wrong. No, I remember it exactly. We were all in the dining room making masks, and she came in and said, Finley, your grandmother's a busy woman. She probably got the schedule mixed up, is all. I wouldn't worry about it. But she said, I really don't want to talk about it anymore, okay? Auntie holds the car door open for me. I can't see her eyes behind her sunglasses, but her smile is front and center. What do you say we swing by Carter's on the way home, grab a batch of those frosted oatmeal cookies for dessert tonight, huh? Okay. I climb into the car. The leather burns the backs of my legs. Auntie turns on the car, and the air conditioning roars to life. A song starts up, and Auntie sings along. She doesn't look at me. I concentrate on my notebook, trying to clear my head. I don't know what to think about Grandma lying to us, and I guess Aunt Dee doesn't want to think about it either. So I stopped thinking and read over my notes. New information about the Everwood. Jeffrey Bailey. Jack, Cole, and Bennett's dad. Frequently gets in trouble for drunk driving. Maggie Bailey. Jack, Cole, and Bennett's mom. Grandma and Grandpa Hart. Gave a lot of money to the city. Library renovation, courthouse restoration, parks maintenance. The Travers family. Frank Travers worked at a small gas station on the outskirts of town. No longer exists. Deceased. 40 years old at time of death. Joy Travers worked at Freddy's Diner on I-35. Went out of business in 1991. Deceased. 35 years old at time of death. Cynthia Travers attended Billington Elementary. Deceased. 8 years old at time of death. The Travers Fire. April 17, 1994. 22 years ago. Dad was 14. Cause of fire. Negligence. Illegal garbage fire spread to house. From fire department records. Joy and Cynthia Travers died in the fire. Frank Travers died in the hospital 3 days later. My aunt saw the fire, tried to save the Travers family, but couldn't. As Auntie brakes at an intersection, she finally looks back at me. Are you all right, Finley? You look like you've seen a ghost. How do I tell her what I am thinking? Pam showed me an article about the Travers fire. I have 2 copies of it in my notebook. The article explains how my aunt saw the flames from the backyard of Hart House. They crossed the river and ran through the Everwood to help. But they couldn't. They were heroes, the article says, the 3 beautiful heart girls. No one is surprised, the article says. The Hart family is a pillar of strength in our community. Those hearts have always shined. Finley? Aunt Dee looks worried. Do you need me to pull over? Why has no one ever told me about this fire? Why did I have to find out myself? It seems odd that Grandma Hart would not have wanted to tell me about my aunts after they did this great thing. And why doesn't this article say anything about Dad? I shut my notebook. I cannot ask these questions until I talk to someone about this. I need to talk to Gretchen or Jack. I'm fine, I tell Aunt Dee. Reading in the car gives me a headache. Chapter 19. I have started accompanying Grandpa on his drives. Not every one of them. Otherwise, I'd be out of the house nearly every afternoon. But some of them. I never ask him to let me go with him. Not after that first time. I do not want to bother him. I understand how a person might want time to himself. Sometimes when I am sitting alone in a quiet room, with only my Everwood stories for company, I feel like I am truly me. I do not have to talk when I don't want to. I can get lost in my thoughts and not miss anything other people think is important. I do not have to pretend to be happy when I am not feeling happy. So usually I wait until Grandpa finds me. Every afternoon before his drive, I hold my breath and listen while Grandpa moves through the house. I hear the jingle of his car keys, the garage door open and shut. Then he is gone. But today he finds me in the squashy armchair by the giant living room window. The house is quiet because Grandma is napping. I am trying to work on an Everwood story, but I cannot stop thinking about the bone house and the list of questions tucked inside my notebook. Feel like going for a drive? He asks me. Can we listen to Beethoven? He smiles. I'd like that. Most of the time Grandpa takes the same route through Billington, and we end up at the farm stand and buy a basket of strawberries. Today we go a different direction. Instead of turning left out of the Hart house driveway, we turn right. We take a country road out to these big rolling prairie fields full of grazing cows. The sky is huge, a cloudless blue carpet that never ends. Nothing gets in its way, no trees, no buildings, no mountains. The second movement of the Pastoral Symphony is playing. It is this really sleepy part of the symphony that sounds like a slow dance. Grandpa isn't talking today, and I am not sure why. Usually he asks me about things back home, like my friend Rhonda next door, or how in art class last year I painted a forest in tiny pieces of color, like a stained glass window. But not today. He stares out the window ahead of us, not looking at the sky or the fields of cows. He turns the volume of the radio up and down. He looks very tired. At a stop sign, he rubs his face, sliding his glasses up his forehead. My notebook, with the newspaper article inside, sits in my lap like a brick. Words rush out of me. Aunt Dee took me to the library this morning. I found out about the Travers fire. Grandpa finally snaps out of his tiredness and looks at me. What? It says Aunt Bridget and Dee and Stick. They were heroes. I take out one copy of the article to show him. Grandpa snatches it away from me. He looks at it for much longer than it would take to read the article. The paper trembles in his hands. How come no one ever talks about it? Now that I have brought it up, I might as well ask my questions. I think it's really nice. They must have been so brave. Watching him, I breathe very carefully. My heartbeat gets louder and louder. Maybe this was a terrible idea, although I cannot imagine why. Does it have something to do with Dad? Why wasn't he in the article? Grandpa is scaring me with the terrible, lost-looking expression on his face, but all the same, I have to know. My words rush out. So how come Dad? Finley, this was a very painful time for everyone, he says abruptly, crumpling the article into a ball and throwing it out the window. It was frightening for us and for your aunts and sad for a lot of people, and I'd prefer we not talk about it. But end of discussion. Can't we just enjoy the day? He drives away from the stop sign. Beethoven's music now sounds unbearably loud. Grandpa, I whisper, because it is really bothering me, you littered. He sighs sharply. I know, and I shouldn't have. Can we go back and pick it up? No. I try to scoot away without him noticing. My eyes are stinging, and I look out the window so he can't tell. We drive for a long time, until we reach a dead end, a dirt road, a no trespassing sign. Grandpa sighs, turns the car around, stops. I'm sorry, Finley. I shouldn't have snapped at you. There was no excuse for that. Can you forgive me? I nod, because the last time I opened my mouth, things came out that apparently should not have. And my question about Dad, it still balances there on my tongue, itching to be said. Good. Thank you. Grandpa starts driving again. The music waltzes through our silence. Why don't you read me something out of your notebook? Something that makes you happy. That sounds like an awful idea. I do not read things out of my notebook to people. It is my own private space. But Grandpa looks so hopeful, and if this will make his conscience feel better about littering, then perhaps I should help him with that. All right. I flip through my notebook, making sure to hide the second copy of the article so he won't crumple that one up too. I like to make lists sometimes. Oh, what kinds of lists? All kinds. Like, I have this one, for example. He glances over. What is it? I hesitate. Why I love my dad. Don't ask the question, Finley. Let's only talk about nice things just now. Nothing about them. Nothing about why. Grandpa goes quiet for a while. Then he says softly, will you read it to me? I scan the page. Some of these are from a long time ago. They're kind of cheesy. That's all right. Go ahead. So I do. Why I love my dad. He is tall. He is strong. He sings songs. Brown eyes. Like me. He tells me funny stories before bed about Yellow Peach. My stuffed rabbit, I explain to Grandpa. He nods, and I keep reading. He likes pizza. He dresses up for Halloween, and other dads don't. When he writes, he makes funny faces, but I pretend I don't see, but I think he knows I see. When I have nightmares, he doesn't think it's silly. He pronounces Beethoven Beethoven because it's funnier that way. He is a good teacher. He doesn't like scary movies either. I read and read. The list is 57 items long. When I get to item number 57, I say, he and pause. I added this last one a couple of weeks ago. What is it? Grandpa asks. It's stupid, I tell him. I doubt that. You don't want to finish. You won't laugh. I won't. I take a deep breath and say the last item on my list. He looks like Grandpa. Like he promised, Grandpa doesn't laugh. He holds my hand instead, even though I am pretty sure one-handed driving is unsafe and illegal. He does not say anything, but he does not need to. The symphony continues, and the cow fields roll us back toward home, and that is enough for me. Chapter 20. That evening before dinner, I show Gretchen and Kennedy the newspaper article Grandpa did not throw away, and I tell them everything I have learned about the Travers fire. We agree not to talk about it with the little ones, and we are certainly not mentioning anything to the adults. I learned my lesson after trying to discuss it with Grandpa. Obviously something is being kept from us. Otherwise, I'm sure I would have heard about the fire by now, and how my aunts tried to save the Travers family. My cousins would have already known about it. They would have told me right away after finding the bone house. They wouldn't want to hide that their mothers are town heroes. I'm glad I'm not the only one who didn't know about this. We are in this mystery together, my cousins and I tell Jack everything in a note and leave it in the post office with the article. Jack's response, a couple of hours later, says this: Dear orphan girl, I didn't know about your aunts and the fire either. Cole says same for him. I noticed one thing. Why doesn't the article talk about your dad? It says your aunts saw the fire, and it talks about your grandparents, but it doesn't say anything about him. That's weird, right? Your friend, Captain Jack P.S. Don't worry, we won't talk about this to the troll, either. Standing beside the post office, I stare at the article, which Jack has returned to me. A messy circle in blue ink surrounds the paragraph talking about my aunts and not my father. So Jack noticed it too. Even if the article just said, thankfully, the youngest heart, Louis, 14, wasn't home at the time and did not have to witness this terrible tragedy, that would make sense to me. So why doesn't it say at least that? I stare at the photos included in the article. The burned bone house. My 3 aunts, golden-haired. Grandma and Grandpa standing behind them with their hands on my aunt's shoulders. Grandpa's face is blank. Grandma's smile is gentle and sad. It looks, I think, just like someone should look at their being photographed after something awful has happened. Dad may not be in this article, but he has to know about the fire. And if that is the case, why has he never told me about it? Even with everything that happened, and his huge fight with Grandma, it seems strange that he would have been able to resist telling such a dramatic story for 11 years. He is hiding something from me. They all are my aunts, my grandparents. I am going to find out what. We sneak out after dinner to meet with the Baileys. Avery is covering for us again, but I don't think she's happy about it. This time Dex, Ruth, and Bennett are coming with us. Gretchen is making notes on her map of the Everwood, which she does every time we're outside. Jack has a backpack crammed full of cleaning supplies. So do I. And so does Kennedy. We are quite serious about cleaning tonight. I have insisted upon it. The bone house needs us. I raided the pantry and the garage, sneaking things back up to my room while the adults were busy. I am a thief. It feels good. I try to think about that feeling instead of the article, or the fire, or my father. Gretchen and Kennedy are arguing about something, hissing back and forth. The sounds become wrapped up in the whispering trees until I cannot tell the two apart. Ahead of them, Cole is herding Dex, Ruth, and Bennett like cattle. So back here it is just me and Jack. I like that. I think I have a crush on Jack. This is not the first crush I've had. Last fall, when Dad was working on an important journal article and Mom was wrapped up in a huge house renovation, we ordered cheap pizza all the time. The delivery boy was freckled and a teenager and had shaggy, sandy-colored hair. He smiled at me and remembered my name. I quickly fell in love with him. At least I think it was love. I have read about falling in love, and I have watched movies in which people fall in love. Whenever the delivery boy came to the door, I could feel myself becoming silly, like I might start either laughing or crying at any moment. After a couple of weeks, he stopped delivering pizza to us. At this point in my life, I like to think he got a better job or went on vacation. But at the time I feared he had sensed my love and had run as fast as he could in the other direction. I did not eat pizza after that, even though refusing pizza and requesting Chinese instead made Dad cranky. The sight and smell of pizza had become too painful. Every time I even thought of it, my throat clenched up and my stomach flipped over. And I wish the world would swallow me up so I wouldn't have to feel that way ever again. If that is what falling in and out of love is like, it is no wonder Mom and Dad don't want me around this summer. It occurs to me that this is the first time I have accepted the possibility that Mom and Dad are not in love anymore. It sort of feels like I am noticing this about someone else's parents. I'm like a doctor observing something strange about my patients who are nice, but I don't have to be friends with them or anything. Eru, are you okay? Jack asks, his finger crooked into a pirate's hook. You look kind of intense. Jack absolutely cannot know I have been thinking about love and crushes and other delicate subjects. Instead, I say the first thing that comes into my head. So, what's up with your dad? Right. Because Jeffrey Bailey, the drunk driver, is not a delicate subject at all. Jack freezes for a second. What? What do you mean? Do not say you have been secretly researching his family, Finley. Whatever you do, just wondering. You never talk about him. Or your mom. Jack starts walking again, his hands in his pockets. His arms are so skinny, they are mostly elbow. Well, my parents are being held captive too, of course. By the troll. Right. I take a deep breath and concentrate on the sensation of my legs taking a step, another step. You're weird tonight, Finley, Jack informs me. What's going on in that orphan girl brain of yours? Grandma missing Dad. Does he miss her? Jeffrey Bailey being arrested for drunk driving. The dying Everwood trees and newspaper articles and blonde heroines and a dead child named Cynthia Travers. How Jack smells like dirt and sweat, which is not as disgusting a smell as you might think. But I do not want to scare Jack away. I will not tolerate another pizza delivery boy disaster. I don't know, I say. Random stuff. Super random. Jack agrees. But it's okay. I like random. We have reached the bone house. The dry grass of the wasteland makes strange, scratchy noises, and the open air makes me feel lonely, although I am surrounded by people. It is a feeling I am used to. Kennedy figures we can be away from Hart House for an hour without the adults getting suspicious. Currently, as is their custom, they are gathered at the dining room table playing dominoes and drinking after-dinner cocktails and probably not thinking about us at all, but you cannot be too careful. So we move fast. We pull on thick gardening gloves from Grandpa's workbench and take pieces of rotting wood and scraps of ruined furniture outside. Jack and Gretchen sweep dirt and leaves out of the kitchen, into the living room, and out the open side of the house into the field. Kennedy and Cole scrub the countertops. I gather trash into big garbage bags. Dex, Ruth, and Bennett work on the floor, although it is so badly damaged that I am not sure it will ever be clean. It will take us many trips to make a noticeable difference here. But we will make this house look something like a home again, little by little. We owe it to the Travers family. I take a garbage bag outside and, with Gretchen's help, lift it into the bed of the old pickup truck. Everything stinks. I almost gag at the smell. But Gretchen looks completely unaffected, so I try to look that way too. What it means to be a Hart. You look pretty even after sprinting across a forest. You look completely unaffected even when you are up to your eyeballs in garbage that smells like feet and rotten eggs. Back inside the kitchen, Gretchen stops and makes a horrible face. Oh, gross. Do you think they're, into each other? I follow Gretchen's glare to the sink, where Kennedy and Cole are having a dirty paper towel fight. The more Kennedy giggles, the darker Gretchen's expression becomes. So what if they are? I say, once I had a huge crush on this pizza delivery boy. That's different, Gretchen whispers. She can like all the pizza delivery boys she wants. But Cole is a Bailey. Gretchen, you don't know anything about them. I know Grandma and Grandpa hate their guts. That's enough for me. What does that matter? We've been hanging out with them for days now. Gretchen blows hair out of her face. I have my eye on him is all I'm saying. Jack shows up out of nowhere and grabs another bag of trash to take outside. Gretchen scowls and stalks away, and I follow Jack into the backyard. We are quiet for a few minutes, going back and forth between the kitchen and the truck with whatever trash we can carry. I start to worry that I should be saying something. Most of the time I think I could be perfectly content without saying a single word, but no one else seems to function that way. There is so much talking in the world, and so much expectation to talk, even if you do not feel like talking. I find it overwhelming. Sorry about Gretchen, I say. Whatever. I'm not worried about her. Jack squints one eye shut and jumps onto the truck's open tailgate. I am wise in the ways of the world, orphan girl. I have sailed across many seas and made port in many lands. One night is not enough to scare me. I laugh and Jack jumps down beside me, grinning. Come on, he says, let's go visit them. I do not have to ask who he is talking about. How wonderful a thing that is, to understand someone else without even trying to. We crawl through the big oak tree's branches and sit on the dirt by the Travers family's gravestones. Jack's knee bumps against mine. My thoughts are a whirl of, well, to be honest, I am not quite sure, so I take a second to organize a list in my mind. About Jack Bailey. Jack does a great pirate accent. When he says my name, it sounds beautiful. When he smiles at me, I cannot help smiling back. Jack is a Bailey. The evening is still and hot around us, but under this tree we are in a cocoon of cool mud and night noises and shifting leaves with 1,000 different voices. My shirt is sticky from all the cleaning, and when the wind trickles past us, I shiver. Do you think it hurt them? Jack asks quietly. You know, when they died? Yes. Jack looks at me. That doesn't freak you out? What doesn't? Dying. I guess. Other things freak me out more. I hesitate, but Jack seems interested. Like what? He asks. I should not have said anything. I don't know. Stupid stuff. I'll tell you what I'm scared of. Yeah? Totally. Let's see. Jack settles back on his arms and watches the leaves move overhead. Tornadoes. Comets, like flying off course and crashing into Earth. Dolls. I crack up. Dolls? Yep. Dolls. Hey, don't laugh. They have these tiny little demon faces. Like, if you look away, they'll jump on you and suck out your soul. You know? I think that might just be you. Fine. Believe what you want. But when the dolls rise up, you'll think about this moment and wish you'd listened to me. I lean back against a branch. The tree sways ever so slightly in the wind, and I let it rock me. So what are you afraid of, Finley? Jack asks. I told you mine. What I am afraid of. What Mom and Dad are talking about while I am gone. That I will never be a real heart. My blue days, when I feel like I am stuck underwater, where everything is slow and cold. When I lose myself, and my brain speeds up, and my heartbeat speeds up, and everything inside me comes crashing down until I can hardly remember what it feels like to breathe without 100 stones stacked on my chest. That I will feel this way for the rest of my life. Jack. Yeah? Looking at the gravestone of Frank Travers, I think about how the bone house must have looked when they were all alive. 2 solid stories, maybe 3 solid bedrooms, whole and breathing and warm with light. Strong, like a house should be, like I am not. Can I tell you later? I ask Jack. When? Sometime. I promise. Jack yawns. Okay, deal. About Jack Bailey. When you promise him something, he'll believe you. No questions asked. Before we leave, we construct a tiny shrine to the Travers family under the stairs that lead up to the 2nd floor. We find this chair with a stained, frayed cushion and wobbly legs, and on the chair we arrange the framed picture of the Travers family, along with one of the coffee cups we found in the kitchen, a couple of books from the living room, and one of Cynthia Travers's stuffed animals, a purple dog with 1 ear and 1 eye. But it is still smiling hopefully. Even Ruth is quiet while we stand by the shrine, listening to the wind move through the house. A train horn sounds and the spell is broken. Good night, Kennedy says, waving at the Travers family photo. See you soon. Everyone files out after her and does the same thing, saying goodbye to the Travers family like they're real people instead of ghosts. I am the last one out, and as I step onto the porch, I notice Cole giving Kennedy our stolen box of dues. I had forgotten all about it. I search for the proper word to describe the expression on his face. Adoring. Soft. Bashful. Nervous. None of those quite work. His expression is all of those things at once and more. The best way to describe it is this. Mom and Dad used to look at each other like that.